and a happy new year to all that is living, to all that is gentle, kind, and forgiving. Raise your glass and we'll have a cheer, my dear acquaintance, a happy new year. And for all of those who are hither and yonder, with love in our hearts we grow fonder and fonder. Raise your glass and we'll have a cheer for us all who are gathered here, and a happy new year to all that is living, to all that is gentle, kind, and forgiving. Raise your glass and we'll have a cheer, my dear acquaintance, and a happy new year.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year, everyone. It's good to see you here, and for those of you that are attending online, welcome. This is Community Church. I'm the Reverend Jude Geiger, our Minister for Community Engagement. Reverend Peggy is on a very short vacation right now. Today's service, we are celebrating the New Year, but we are also celebrating and honoring the Buddhist holy day or holiday. Today is the day of the Bodhi tree, when the Buddha achieved enlightenment. And we'll be teaching and talking about that in this service today. And in today's service, our children are with us throughout the entirety of the service. Let us center ourselves. Come into the circle of caring. Come into this community of gentleness, of justice, of love. Come and you shall be refreshed. In this healing community, caring as a calling, and all of us are called, so come into the circle. Welcome, everyone, and I invite you to join with us in singing our first hymn, Let This Be a House of Peace. The words are on the next page of the order of service.
Let this be our house,
again in song. We light this chalice, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in the community, and in the world. Please join in reciting our unison affirmation. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community. Unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts. Now is the time in our service where we greet each other as part of our shared liturgy. As Unitarian Universalists, we recognize our shared values of love, generosity, and interdependence in greeting each other. We turn to our neighbor, whether they are strangers or friends, and welcome them to our shared space. It's one way that we affirm our interconnected journeys that have come together for this sacred moment that we are all a part of right now. Let us now greet our neighbors. No, it's great. Feel free to take your seats again. It's always my favorite part of the service, so I like to linger. But there's always time afterwards as well. All right, as we join back together. So tomorrow in the US Capitol, the counting and certification of the electoral votes for the 2024 election will be held. Now, for most of our history, this event has been insignificant, simply a procedural necessity that all but the most politically involved ignored. 4 years ago, that changed. Our bodies hold the trauma of the last 8 years, the first Trump presidency and its aftermath, the insurrection and attack on the Capitol, and the heartbreak and fear of this most recent election. We know that tomorrow will look very different than 4 years ago for a variety of reasons. We know that although we are angry, our values call us to disrupt systems of power and oppression in different ways. As we enter into 2025 and yet another era in American politics, as we continue to mourn the loss of a world we thought that we knew, may we begin and continue to rally, to organize, to collect our power and resist in ways that are aligned with our Unitarian Universalist values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity, all rooted in love.
Breathe in, breathe out. Winter is for stillness, rest, and be at ease. Breathe in, breathe out. Winter is for gentleness, rest, and be at ease. hold others in our hearts, not just ourselves. Today we pray for Judy and Beth, Brittany, Eric, John, Liz, Zoe, Aunt Lucille, Dave, Meg, Matt, Virginia, and Yuri Grant. Breathe in, breathe out. In our community, we light a candle in times of darkness. The candle becomes a symbol for us of hope. All are invited now to light a candle. May it be a symbol to you of hope in darkness. Thank you. Amen.
So today's wisdom story is about the Bodhisattva, or a Bodhisattva. This happened a long, long time ago, many lifetimes ago. And in this lifetime, the Bodhisattva was a rabbit. He lived in the forest and he had 3 friends. One was a monkey, one was a jackal, and one was an otter. And this rabbit was the Bodhisattva. He was very wise, and he taught his friends how to be kind and generous towards others. So one evening, before a holy day, he reminded them that they needed to have some food ready at their homes in case anyone came to visit that next day. So the next morning, they all went down to find some food. The otter slipped down to the river and caught some fish. The jackal snuck into an empty hut and stole a jar of curds. And the monkey leapt into the forest and gathered ripe mangoes from the trees. But the Bodhisattva, however, was at a loss. He only ate grass and realized that he would not have anything to offer his guests, any guests who came his way. But he had an idea. That evening, the king of the gods, Indra, disguised himself as a Brahmin priest and put the animals to the test. Indra first visited the otter and asked her to share her food with him. The otter offered him the fish and invited him to stay with her as long as he needed. He thanked her but told her that he had to continue on his way. Next, he visited the jackal and the monkey, who also shared their food with him and welcomed him warmly. And finally, he approached the Bodhisattva. Upon hearing Indra's request for food, the Bodhisattva prepared a fire. He shook himself 3 times to avoid killing any insects living in his fur, and then he jumped into the flames. To his surprise, the Bodhisattva felt no heat amidst the fire. Indra then revealed himself and explained that he had come to test the Bodhisattva's virtue. The Bodhisattva told Indra that he would have done the same for any visitor that came his way. He would have sacrificed himself so that his visitor had something to eat. And Indra told him that as a reward for his selflessness and generosity, he painted a picture of the rabbit on the moon for all to see. So the next time that you see the moon, take a look and see if you can find the shape of the rabbit on its surface. May it serve as a reminder to be kind and generous to all that come your way, asking for your help.
There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Oh yeah. People get ready for the train of Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and board them. There's hope for all among the loved and lost. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. Don't need no ticket, you just thank the Lord. Just get on board. The trains are coming. I believe. Do you believe? Oh, yeah. Get on board. The trains are coming. I believe. I do believe.
All that and the electric guitar too. Thank you, choir. Happy New Year again, everyone. Can you hear me fine with the microphone the way it is right now? Perfect. Go ahead and start doing that. Brother Zachary is for our New Year's ritual. We've tended to do this, or we started this last year or a couple of years ago, I'm not sure. Brother Zachary is going to be bringing around a bowl with flash paper in the bowl, and it's an opportunity to meditate on or reflect on during this sermon something from the last year or something from any point before now that you think you might be ready to start letting go of. And in religious community, we hold each other in care. At some point toward the end of the sermon, Reverend Brother Zachary is going to be coming around again with the bowl to collect paper. And at the end of the service, right after the sermon, he'll be burning them in our chalice. Religious community, we hold our cares with one another, and collectively, we help each other to let go of what we need to let go. We're going to be doing a little bit of teaching in a few moments about Buddhism, but I want to start with our personal family life coach. We've long known that our beloved dog, Lola, she's brown and white, boxer bull terrier, looks like the old dog with the Tai Chi on the face, brown on one side, white on the other, is a truly effective life coach for our household. She's our resident Zen master teacher, and as someone who in seminary would attend 6 a.m. Zen classes with a Korean Buddhist Zen nun, I don't say that lightly. If she's sick or has to go in for a checkup, she stays happy as she enters the vet. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I just got through 2 weeks of something that I had to go to the hospital for, and I'm not quite sure I attained that level of happiness through all the procedures. She's probably terrified, though, as the vet does the things vets always do. But she has a sort of, if I just stay still, this will all soon be over vibe. And then I'll get a treat, right? I'll get a treat. And then she's all licky face immediately with the vet when it's all done, excitedly saying goodbye to everyone on our way out. I want that superpower of letting things go in the moment. I remember one time walking with her on what was the kind of a first real spring day of the year. Hopefully we'll get there in a couple of months. It's almost there. And I was taking her for a 3-mile walk. This usually is a hobby of mine that gives me life, but on this random day, the frets in the world were really taking hold. We're all busy people, and I was at my busiest on this random spring day, but the life coach still needed her walk. We're out and I'm running through all the things I did in my head, all the things I'm about to do in my head, and all the pathways to getting them done, as I was stressing out at what couldn't be accomplished. My heart wasn't in the walk, and my head was surely a million miles away. Is that an experience that ever happens in your life? Your heart's not there, your head's somewhere else. Hopefully it's not right now. There's enough of you nodding that I think you're here with me. A short while into it, Lola stops. She turns back, looks at me, and gives me this grin. I know people say dogs can't do a grin, but she will scrunch up her cheeks like that to communicate a smile to me. She stops and turns back, smiles, and jumps up and down with a full body, "Come on already." It's gorgeous outside, and we're doing this thing. In the spiritual mantra for joyful living, it is one. Come on already. And I'm like, all right, I'll pay attention to you. I'll pay attention to the world. There's beauty to see. The frets will come later. We all need a dog life coach somewhere, some days, to get our heads and out of our hearts and back in the same place sometimes. What was I doing, though, in those moments? Tasks and work plans, fears and concerns were all distracting me from the moment. Those were my thoughts, a part of me, whatever that means. And they were disconnecting me from life. I was clearly living in the realm of then or soon or what if. The world, that world, what if, does not exist. Only the present does. These thoughts steal us away from the sacredness of life, both from joyfully living. We excuse our sidetracked minds as merely being easily distracted, but when we turn our focus toward what we are doing, rather than what we could be doing, or what we weren't doing, we become aware of life, our life. There are several Buddhist refrains that echo this. Many of you may have heard of them, so I'm not going to tell them in long stories. Sometimes it's using a teacup, sometimes it's doing dishes. When you're doing dishes, for example, do the dishes. Don't be dreading doing the dishes. Don't be remembering that horrible work call you had earlier in the day. Forget about whatever happened to Dwayne Reed across the street, right? There isn't one across the street, but wherever you live, there's probably a Dwayne Reed across the street. That's over. Just do the dishes. We shouldn't be dreading things. We shouldn't be dreading the simple things. The only thing when we do that, we lose the only precious gift we have, the moments that we have, the breaths that we have. If your breath was suddenly taken away from you right now, it would be the worst thing you could imagine in the moment, and that isn't happening right now. Now, granted, some of us may not particularly enjoy washing our own dishes, and as someone who lived for years in New York City apartments without an automatic dishwasher, I didn't really love it that much, right? I'm fully aware of that kind of life with that one, but that's a life too, and it's good to have it. If those breaths, sorry about this microphone, I'm going to lower it a little bit. I want to breathe, but I don't want you to hear me breathe, right? All of our activities, joyful or tedious, are our activities, and mindful presence in them can create a joy through them. Taking these practices to heart, we can get a sense of accomplishment. How do we live with joy more fully into our lives? That is what I'm wondering, and that's often, Buddhism is often spoken about. We often hear the tenet about an end to suffering or an ease to suffering. But there's a joy in that too, and I want to kind of lift that up today. One of the stories I've talked about, we're going to do a little exercise here, a little practice. You all ready to not leave your seats, but possibly move a little bit? Okay, good. Most of us walk around, here we go. Let's all try, I'm sorry everybody, some of you know this. I'm practicing as my eyesight is changing. I am practicing with different font sizes and contact or camera or reading glass things, and I'm having a problem right now that I'm going to try to adapt again next time. Let's all try this practice in our seats for a moment. Maybe you're even doing it. Ready? Go ahead, ruin your posture. Hunch over. Scrunch up. Even more, choir. I want to see you looking miserable, okay? Right? Some of you are doing it, some of you are already there. How's that feel, choir? Great? We've got a great. How about the rest of you? Not that good, right? All right. Well, you can keep doing that if you want to. You can stop now if you want to. But as New Yorkers, if you want to continue hunching, far be it for me to take that away from you. Most of us walk around many days like that. You might even see me doing it in the middle of this sermon, slightly stooped over, shoulders curled forward, and our breath fast and shallow. It just feels bad. A lot of you said that. It doesn't feel good. More importantly, most of us are completely unaware of that connection. I don't know if you had this sort of experience before. For myself, during the latter part of my years in computers, I used to run a 24/7 computer help desk for a university. I began to suffer an odd numbing sensation in my arms. The obvious guess was carpal tunnel, but that turned out to not be the case, thankfully. I was so extremely stressed out, remember, supervising a 24/7 computer help desk, that it crippled my breathing. I simply wasn't getting enough oxygen into my body. The final prescription by my medical doctor was to, ready? Start breathing. That was a rough one to hand to the prescription at the pharmacy. And then the miracle occurred. I could feel my arms again. If the meditative washing of the dishes isn't an end in of itself, which I believe it is, it's also a good practice for overall health. I know it might seem trite, but I swear after trying this out for a few weeks, you start to find joy and even wonder in all the little things. I know so many people say they don't meditate, they can't meditate. I get it. I felt that way at some point also. And now it's a practice I do every day to get through the world. And not just that, but it also literally brings me joy when I meditate. So I lift that up as a thing that, for those who've had a hard time with it, it might be worth trying again and trying again and trying again. Although I don't recommend 6 a.m. in the morning if you're a night owl like me. But when I took those meditation groups or took part in them, it did change my life. And there's something more to this practice than our health and awareness. A central tenet of Buddhism is attention to our breath. Buddhism recognizes a link between all of us when we touch this awareness together. The symbolism is expressed in what Buddhists call the Bodhi spot, or the place where the Buddha attained enlightenment. He attained enlightenment at the foot of a tree. And I should tell that story, and I need to grab a bit of water, then I'll come back, and that one's out. Thank you. I might tell two stories, actually. One is a Buddhist, we're going to talk about some words that we heard our ministerial intern, Karishma, telling the story, and I'm going to talk about the history of the start of Buddhism. And I'm thinking right now I might tell a second short rabbit story that's from an indigenous North American tradition that relates to what I'll talk about moving forward. We heard a bodhisattva before. A bodhisattva is someone who has attained enlightenment in a past life and has chosen to come back, be reincarnated into life to help others come forward, to help others attain enlightenment. Now, the historic Buddha, today is the day Buddhism celebrates the Bodhi tree, or where the Buddha attained enlightenment in most of Buddhism. Japan recognizes it on a fixed date on December 8th, but we're recognizing it where most of the world does today. The Buddha, the historic Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, the Sakyamuni Buddha, historic Buddha, was once a young prince, and he lived in a palace and grew up amongst wealth and privilege and power, and was protected throughout his childhood from illness or grief. He never saw anyone that wasn't healthy. He never saw anyone that was ill. He never saw death. And he had a pleasant upbringing, as the story goes. And one day, he left the palace, which he was not allowed to do, and traveled among the people. And then he began to see death. He began to see poverty. He began to see sickness and wrestled with it. And the story is much longer, but for the purpose of today, he travels and sits at a tree, the Bodhi spot, where he attains enlightenment, a balance, a middle path between pain and suffering and power and privilege. And one of the world's oldest religions is born. The second rabbit story I want to tell briefly here is indigenous, and it's from the North American traditions, indigenous peoples, and it's told in different ways by different places. I've told it before, so I'm not going to tell it as long as I normally tell it. But it's a wisdom story about a rabbit, a hare, who's a teacher in indigenous cultures in North America. There are various wisdom stories about ancestors and animals that have much to teach the wider world. And this rabbit is going along in the woods and having a good old time, enjoying their day and eating grass, as we heard from Krishma earlier. And then spots or hears a hawk circling above. And this rabbit is scared, terrified. There's a hawk right above, and says, "Oh no, I'm going to be eaten by the hawk." Hawk doesn't notice the rabbit. The hawk keeps circling. Time goes by. The rabbit gets more and more worried, more and more nervous, and runs out further. And in a moment of fear, yells out again, "Oh no, I'm going to be eaten by the hawk." The hawk doesn't notice, and the hawk continues spiraling. And the third time, terrified, the rabbit yells out, "I'm going to be eaten by the hawk." And the hawk hears the rabbit and has a lovely meal. The story teaches us something about fear that I was talking about before, and I'm going to go into it a little bit more right now. The Bodhi spot, the Bodhi tree, for us, is not just a geographic place on earth. That place is reached by all of us when we encounter the moment between the moments, the still between all the fury and sound and dross. When we put aside our thoughtful distractions and become fully present, we all enter that same space together. It's what we heard a little bit about, I mentioned briefly in Buddhism. Group meditation, group presence, group awareness has a quality to it when we come together. When we put away our thoughtful distractions and become fully present in whatever we are doing, we all enter that same space together. It's a joyful way of living into our seventh principle, where we have coveted to affirm or promote the interdependent web of life of which we all are a part. Often the lack of presence keeps most of us from ever entering the same world as all but a rare few people. We go by thousands of people every day living in Metro New York. We've all experienced this, whether in the crowded street or the bustling mall. You remember a few faces an hour later, but for the most part, they weren't even there. I just had it happen. I get here early on Sundays, and I was going to our church office, and there were a group of Brits that were lost, and they were talking with each other about they're trying to find some train station on 34th Street. And I was in my rote New York moment, just walking by them and about to not say anything. And then I'm like, "You're about to preach on this in a few hours. You better stop yourself." I'm like, "Oh." There's a station called Penn on 34th, if that's what you're looking for. Thanks, mate. And I went on. But most of our interactions, I can't tell you a single other face I saw on my way here today. We're certainly moving along. We all keep doing as we each do it, but we're often more focused on our daydream world than the actual streetscape. I even think it highly unlikely those few faces that I can recall would remember mine. And they probably wouldn't remember yours either. It's nothing special. If we miss that many flowers in a garden, we would think we missed the point of the stroll. And we do it every day. Too often we're not here. Living in this massively populated modern world, we may not be able to engage in deep relationship with each passerby, but we can attempt to experience the presence in our minds, in our midst, And it's also important to identify when we carry this anonymity into relationships that we can foster. The Bodhi tree is celebrated this time of year in Buddhism, and we honor that today. The teaching of being present applies to so many things too. I think about fear and worry, right? As the world is going through so many real things to make us fear and worry. I'm not going to answer them all. Like I said, Reverend Peggy will be back next week. She'll answer everything, I'm sure. How do we cope? The constant cycling of our worried thoughts can paralyze us. What will the medical results be? How long will I live? How much pain will I have to undergo to treat my illness? Am I going to get into that good school next year? In New York City, I think that starts in pre-K, right? All of these are genuine concerns about our future. But generally, when we worry, none of them are in the present. Usually, we worry about things that might happen. We create a world that might be, and for the vast majority of us, that world is quite unpleasant, and we choose to live in it. Despite popular sentiment, worry is not a useful means of planning for the future. If the results turn out to be favorable, we will live through the experience once through our minds. If they turn out to be negative, we'll be putting ourselves through them, that dreadful space, twice. Living in our world of thoughts about the real world, that is what the tree is calling us back from. We need to separate worry from fear. Fear is an emotion we experience. It's instinctual. It's going to happen. It's okay. Worry is what we add to it with our thinking mind, our worry mind, our monkey minds, as some stories say in Buddhism. The next time you're afraid, just be afraid. It's okay. That doesn't mean you ignore the car on the road speeding towards you, but it does mean you didn't consider the cars that missed you after the fact, or the other cars that might later hit you. Just get out of the way. Most of us will eventually get out of the way, but we'll do our best to consider all the rest along the road. As someone who's been hit by a car as a pedestrian in Brooklyn, you will hear car metaphors throughout the years. I'm sorry. It was formative for me. It's more than just a lot of energy spent on realities that won't come to be. It comes back to not living in the life that we do have right now. Instead, we're sleepwalking when we do this, through fantastical dreams that are both good sometimes and bad, but not real. I tend to like all my emotions, whether they are full of love and joy or weighed down by anger. I remember a time, started about it in IT 30 years ago, 20 years ago. Don't rush it. That was particularly difficult. Maybe you remember a time like for yourselves that's like that too, or maybe you're feeling numb today. It's a very hard place to be. Our full and fully present presence of mind is a spiritual goal. Goal is not quite the right word. Joy can be found in between the moments of hardship and pain. And sometimes we can even choose joy when we allow ourselves. And here's where I'm going to invite Brother Zachary forward. For those of you that are just coming in now online, we've invited folks to spend this time attending to our intentions of what we might let go. And Brother Zachary will burn those intentions of letting go away into our communal fire with Matt Pod on the piano.
Thank you. If you have your little bits of flammable paper, pass them towards the center. I'll collect them here. Yes. You can also send forth your intentions so that the community can hold them. The actual words don't have to be written on the paper. You can also send up your intentions with your heart. There you go. That's good. All right. Excellent. That's perfect. It's supposed to fall apart. It's a special paper that burns easily in the fire. Perfect. That's good. Excellent. Okay. All right. Yes? Thank you. We've collected up on paper a lot of our community's intentions to be released in acknowledgement and observance of Bodhi Day. Even if your intention wasn't written on a paper, as the fire burns, consider what you would like to give up and release in this space. And listen to our choir.
Breathe out love when I breathe in. I breathe in peace when I breathe out. I breathe out love. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe out. When I breathe in, I'll breathe out love. I do believe, I believe, I believe, I believe, I We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry together in our hearts and until we are together again. For those who see God, may God be with us. For those who embrace life, may life return our affections. For those who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it, move by move. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen. And I invite you all to rise in body and spirit and sing our song as you will, Fire of Commitment.